If you see him, don't follow. And whatever you do, don't make eye contact. London's underground carries millions of people every day, but there are moments it carries something else, something that doesn't belong. For decades, transport workers, late-night commuters, and security staff have whispered about a figure known only as the man in the red coat. Officially, he doesn't exist. Unofficially, too many people have described the same thing to ignore. The story resurfaced after a leaked internal report began circulating online. Not a police file, not a newspaper article, a fragmented document allegedly compiled by underground staff, quietly passed from hand to hand. Its purpose was never public disclosure. It was a warning. According to the report, sightings follow a disturbing pattern. Same coat, same posture, same locations. Always late at night, always just out of direct light, and always followed by something going wrong. Signal failures, missing persons, or unexplained shutdowns. What makes the case unsettling isn't just fear, it's consistency. Different witnesses, different years, different stations, yet identical descriptions. A tall man, an old-fashioned red coat, no visible face, and a presence that makes the air feel wrong. This video is not about folklore or urban legends. What you're about to hear is a reconstruction of the evidence, the testimonies, and the patterns that suggest the underground may be hiding more than tunnels and tracks. And it all starts with the first recorded sighting, a night that was supposed to be routine. The first official mention of the man in the red coat doesn't appear in police records. It appears in a maintenance log from 1987, written by a night shift engineer working near the Piccadilly line. The note was brief, almost careless, until you read the last sentence. Worker refused to re-enter tunnel after visual contact. According to the log, the engineer reported seeing a man standing between two inactive tracks. No train was scheduled, no power was running, yet the figure was there, completely still, facing the tunnel wall. When asked to describe him, the engineer said only one thing clearly. He was wearing a long red coat, too clean for this place. Supervisors initially assumed stress or fatigue, but things escalated when CCTV footage from that section of the tunnel mysteriously corrupted itself. Not erased, not deleted, corrupted, as if the data had never properly existed. This same anomaly would repeat itself in later cases. 3 nights after the report, a signal failure shut down the line for nearly 4 hours. During the inspection, another worker claimed to hear footsteps following him. Slow, deliberate, matching his pace. When he turned around, the tunnel was empty, but on the wall beside him, fresh condensation formed the vague outline of a human silhouette. The engineer who filed the original report resigned the following week. No exit interview, no explanation. Colleagues said he refused to talk about the underground ever again. When pressed years later, he allegedly said just one sentence: "It noticed me noticing it." That report was classified as environmental stress-induced hallucination. But here's the problem. It wasn't the last time the same coat would be described. It was the first. By the early 1990s, reports involving the red coat had become impossible to dismiss, not because they were frequent, but because they were identical. Different stations, different employees, same description, same timing. Always between 12:40 a.m. and 1:15 a.m. when passenger volume dropped and surveillance routines relaxed. An internal review quietly compared 12 unrelated incidents. 11 of them occurred within 48 hours of unexplained underground disruptions, stalled trains, sudden power losses, or emergency evacuations with no clear cause. The 12th case ended differently. A commuter vanished. The missing person was last seen at a platform on the Northern Line. CCTV captured him pacing, checking his phone, clearly irritated. Then the footage glitched, not blacked out, not cut, but distorted. When the image stabilized, the platform was empty. No exit footage, no alarm, no trace, except for one still frame. In that frozen frame, analysts noticed something chilling. Behind where the man had been standing, reflected faintly in the tunnel glass, was a splash of color. Red, long, vertical, as if someone stood just out of frame, close enough to be seen, but not recorded.
After that incident, an internal memo advised staff not to acknowledge reports involving unidentified individuals in non-standard attire. The wording was careful, not imaginary, not hallucinated, just unidentified, as if the underground already knew something the public didn't. And that raises a critical question most people never ask. If this was just fear or coincidence, why did London Underground change its protocols right after the sightings? When analysts overlaid the sightings on a map, a disturbing detail emerged. The man in the red coat was never seen randomly. The stations followed a pattern. Older stations, built before modern safety standards, many of them sitting on sites with documented accidents, collapses, or unexplained deaths during construction. Covent Garden, Aldwych, Baker Street, stations with narrow platforms, poor ventilation, and long curved tunnels where visibility breaks down, places where sound behaves strangely, where footsteps echo even when no one is there. Workers referred to these areas as dead zones. In multiple testimonies, witnesses described the same behavior. The man never boarded trains, never moved quickly. He appeared standing still, usually near the tunnel entrance or at the far end of a platform where light fades and cameras struggle. Always watching, never approaching. One security guard described a moment that still haunts him. While patrolling an unused corridor near Aldwych, he saw the red coat reflected in a glass panel behind him. When he turned, there was nothing, but when he looked back at the glass, the reflection was gone too, as if it never needed a physical form. Maintenance crews began avoiding certain tunnels altogether, not because of orders, but because of instinct. Several workers reported nausea, sudden headaches, and an overwhelming urge to leave when entering zones tied to sightings. Medical exams showed nothing abnormal. The underground didn't close these areas. It did something quieter. It reduced staffing, limited patrols, and automated monitoring, as if fewer eyes meant fewer problems.
For something allegedly imaginary, the man in the red coat causes a very real problem. Cameras fail around him. Not completely, not dramatically. They stutter, blur, desync, producing footage that looks intact until you try to focus on one specific frame. In several cases, CCTV shows platforms behaving normally until a shadow appears where no shadow should exist. Lighting remains unchanged. No train passes, yet the shadow stretches unnaturally, elongated and sharp, as if cast by something standing just outside the visible spectrum. Technicians noticed a recurring glitch. Timestamps would briefly reverse by 1 or 2 seconds, then correct themselves. This anomaly only occurred in clips linked to sightings. No software fault was ever officially confirmed, but internal notes described the issue as localized temporal instability. One operator attempted to zoom in manually during a live feed. The moment he adjusted focus toward the red shape at the far end of the platform, the monitor shut off. When it rebooted, the feed resumed, but the operator could not remember why he had touched the controls in the first place. Even more unsettling, no camera has ever captured the man entering or leaving a station. He is only seen already there, or suddenly gone, as if movement doesn't apply to him the way it applies to everyone else underground. And that leads to the most disturbing implication so far. If the cameras don't see him arrive, maybe he doesn't arrive at all. One detail stands out in every credible account. The man in the red coat has never been seen above ground, not entering stations, not exiting them, not on streets, platforms exposed to daylight, or connected railways. His presence is strictly confined to the underground, as if the surface world rejects him. Urban researchers point out something unsettling. London's underground wasn't built all at once. It was carved over decades through plague pits, forgotten burial grounds, sealed-off tunnels, and collapsed chambers never officially mapped. Some engineers believe parts of it function less like transit space and more like a stitched-together labyrinth. Several psychologists consulted unofficially suggested the same theory independently. Environments saturated with fear over long periods can produce shared hallucinations. But this explanation collapses when confronted with physical evidence, identical descriptions across generations, identical behavior, identical timing. A more disturbing hypothesis exists among tunnel workers. They believe the man in the red coat is not an intruder, but a boundary marker, something that appears when people cross places they were never meant to linger. Not a hunter, not a ghost, a warning given shape. This would explain why he appears near restricted zones, unused corridors, and stations with sealed platforms. Why he never speaks but reacts when noticed. Why following him leads people into spaces that seem to fold in on themselves. If that theory is true, then the underground doesn't just transport people, it contains something, and the red coat is how it tells you you've gone too far. The final document surfaced quietly on a closed forum used by former transport employees. No headline, no explanation, just a scanned memo stamped "Not for public release." According to metadata, it was drafted after a late-night incident that never reached the news, a full station lockdown that officially never happened. The memo described an evacuation triggered by an unidentified, stationary individual at the far end of the platform. Power systems malfunctioned simultaneously, emergency lights failed, and multiple staff members reported the same thing: a man in a red coat standing where the tunnel curves into darkness. One line was underlined 3 times in pen: "Do not address the individual, do not approach, do not attempt removal." Instead, staff were instructed to redirect passengers and wait, not resolve the situation, not investigate, just wait until the figure was no longer visible. The most disturbing detail came near the end of the memo. A junior supervisor asked what should be done if the man appeared closer than usual. The response was written in capital letters: "If he is on the platform, you are already late." Attached to the document was a single still image, blurred, grainy, almost useless, except for one thing. The red coat wasn't at the edge of the frame, it was centered, and for the first time in any record, the figure appeared to be facing the camera. The face was still obscured, but the posture was different, not waiting, not watching, recognizing. The memo ended with a procedural update that was never explained publicly. From that date forward, staff training quietly changed. New employees were told that if they ever felt an unexplainable urge to leave a platform, they should do so immediately. No report required, no questions asked. Veteran workers understood the real meaning. The underground wasn't teaching safety, it was teaching avoidance. As if acknowledging certain things gave them permission to act, as if attention itself was a trigger. There's a final pattern most people overlook. Every confirmed sighting of the man in the red coat happened when someone stayed too long, missed trains, delays, curiosity, people lingering where movement should have continued. The underground flows, and whatever wears the red coat appears when that flow breaks. Which brings this story uncomfortably close to you. If you've ever stood alone on a platform late at night, if you've ever felt watched without seeing anyone, if you've ever noticed a flash of red where no one should be standing, transport authorities insist there is no such figure, no reports, no danger, just stories. But stories don't change protocols. Stories don't corrupt cameras, and stories don't get written in capital letters telling people not to engage. So here's the only advice that has never been contradicted. If you see a man in a red coat standing still in London's underground, don't stare, don't follow, and whatever you do, don't stay to see what he does next.